This is the post-commentary version of the first ever sub 1 hour RiME any percent run done in 59 minutes and 47 seconds with automatic loads remove time, or 59 minutes 57 seconds with manual loads remove time, whichever way you see it as. So I want to discuss two things really quickly. Why am I making this? For one, I wanted to explain the little nuances and intricacies of strats that have been developed over the last 7.5 years since this game was released that made this eventual sub 1 20% run happen. And I'm also not too pleased with the live commentary in some parts, being that I've made a misconception based on if this run could actually achieve sub 1 as it was happening, mainly because of a miscalculation on the loads when retiming loads on my computer. There's 6 loads that we do reload last checkpoints strats for, and I only added up 5 of them, so that's where that comes in with the live commentary, and I'll get to those later on in the run. So time has always started on first input. So right there is when Inu wakes up on the beach of denial. So we just hold forward, and right there you could see in my splits that I had minus 1940. That's because I'm using the auto splitter slash load remover that Avasam had made for this game around nearly 5 years ago. And so that's why I was able to just straight up hold W with that set time, and it will be practically around frame perfect start. So right there, the first, if you've seen any runs before, the first newish thing is going back, holding backwards at the start for around 3.5 steps, then going forward and jumping. That's just because we are able to gain access to jumping immediately after 3.5 steps backwards, taking a slight 100% detour for about like 2 seconds. It just saves a little bit of time, because normally you would wait for, you normally walk forward and wait like 7 seconds to start being able to jump. So, I want to mention right off the bat, one of the main feedback of this game is scroll jumping for PC. So I went into the game file, and we have this, we made this legalized like immediately, just because we knew jumping is faster than walking and even the running animation usually. So we went into game files and made scroll up, scroll down, jump. Right here is the introduction of breaking the game. Just by going out of bounds. Right there, I went for a safer version of that out of bounds. There's another version that I would go in, that many of us would go for in previous records and runs, but it's a little more annoying than the version I just did in this run. This one allows just easy runs into out of bounds section without having to waste time and reset, so that kind of backs up the first reset point to a little bit in the run rather than within the first 2 minutes. So here there's a lot of water planes out of bounds, so we take this one and we're gonna perform, I'm gonna perform one of the first few major skips of the run, where we up warp into a section much later into the level, and I'm doing a specific input set here to up warp instantly into the spot I want to with the visual cues. So I'm right now clipped inside of a staircase, and I am trying to get back in bounds just by putting Inu in a specific spot just to be able to actually get back in bounds. And that used to be like unsolved, and everyone just went to a corner of that staircase to try to clip back in bounds. But I recently found there's like a specific spot, if you face the direction I was facing, to make clipping back in easier. So, alright. So that was one of the first few major skips of the run. You'll be seeing quite a good amount and a lot of smaller skips. A lot of them, most of them probably, have been found by me because this game has been pretty dormant by a lot of people since the first year it came out. It's only been a small handful of runners since the first year, sadly. Right there was I really don't even remember how it's supposed to look like normally, but I think you're not supposed to throw that orb over there like that. So that might be a small puzzle skip. I'm not too sure. Right here is a small skip. I don't know who found it, but you're supposed to utilize all these 3 pedestals on the ground, but we can just skip using one of them just by throwing that orb against the staircase in a specific spot, and it never falls down, because when the orbs start rolling, we're never able to grab them. So just a small skip in this first tower of 2. The out of bounds and up warp allowed us to basically skip half the level. So there would be a whole like long part before we get to this whole hub section with these 2 towers. And it wasn't always like that before. There was a version found within the first few days of this out of bounds, where we just straight up skipped the fox statues at the beginning of the game and then flip back in when we meet the fox. Really, this entry to this area, which we call early towers, I found just completely by random and by accident. I think 2 months, or not 2 months, I think a month later, if not less than that. But alright, we're heading into the second tower, and a lot of this goes by really quick because it is kind of a short run. Right here, skip a little bit of climbing and shimming by rolling onto that ledge. And this tower had practically nothing interesting about it up until my comeback in 2022, when I came back and decided to find a lot of new strats and whatnot, and this is one of the primary things that I found. So this was a shout puzzle where we have to grab a skull from the opposite side and bring it over and do more shouting. Right there, I was able to line myself up with 3 of the 4 totem statues and then jump across to hit the 4th one just in time to skip half of that puzzle. And right now, there's another shouting puzzle, if you could say, but what I just did there was there's a locked cutscene after all 3 of these totem statues on the wall are activated, and I just straight up skipped the locked camera that comes with it by performing a small death. So this whole tower, when I was trying to find new discoveries and whatnot in 2022, it came out to be 40 seconds, around 40 seconds of total time save, which is crazy for such a small part of the run. So right here, I'm about to do another one of those death warps, just cutscene skips by doing an intricate cardinal movement in order to bypass the cutscene that we would be locked into if I didn't take a death there. So that's, I'd say, the first reset point in the run if you go for the easier out of bounds strat. And this saves 17 seconds overall. And it was actually found by someone made the comment in one of Unmind's previous records where they said they found this. And then eventually in 2022, I came up with the RTA viable strat to put in runs. And that, along with the smaller time saves in the early parts of the tower, ended up being around 40 seconds of time save overall for that single tower, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, this run flies by really quick in the first 10 minutes, so it's hard to get every bit of explanation in and whatnot. But yeah, this hasn't been too much other than those time saves found in 2022. Hasn't been too much different in quite a while for this area. Scroll jumping up those stairs are like almost impossible. Like 1 out of 10 times you'll get a normal jump. So I just started to avoid doing it. So while we cross this bridge, I guess I can explain the movement really quickly. So obviously I have said that scroll jumping with the mouse on PC is the fastest form of movement. Not in the game, but in the run, because there's another form of movement that's the fastest in the game that people have been able to glitch with, but is not applicable in any category. But we want to get as many horizontal or just forward jumps as possible. There's another form of jump called a vertical jump, where we just kind of Inu jumps in place, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. It's just an annoyance. But yeah, the history of denial has been quite a straightforward one. Just most things. Right there is a vertical jump I'm talking about, but that's one of like 2 or 3 that is just kind of like forced. But denial has been basically broken since the first week, and then just a bunch of small time saves found mostly by me. That jump is crazy hard to make for some reason. Possible. Right here there's a sundial. Normally you would line it up with that decal on the that left large decal on the wall, and there would be a locked camera, kind of like an overshot view of the whole area here. And then we would get on this pedestal, and we would start a cutscene to rebuild the bridge that we're about to cross. But instead, we're performing a glitch where we offset the sundial a little bit so that the shadow starts rolling into the decal. So after some time, the sundial will start rolling, and we offset it so that the shadow rolls into the decal while we're standing on the pedestal. So the cutscene starts, but as you can see, we were able to move while the cutscene was starting, and we're actually, while the physical state of Inu is here, we're actually halfway across the bridge. So practically another cutscene skip, but not really, because the camera is still locked on the cutscene, but we're able to perform some blind movement, and that was found decently early on as well. I optimized some like movement with it, so you could see me doing specific inputs at some points. I opted to not do a couple of extra inputs when the camera faced Inu in his physical state, where we would do blind movement backwards for a couple of jumps, save like a couple more seconds there. But right, the rest of the level is not really anything interesting. It kind of flies by in like the first 10 minutes, so I can explain a couple of other things really quickly. So with the layout that I'm using, that I've practically always used, minus the input viewer with the keyboard and mouse, because I used to run this game on Xbox One, the only like, Xbox One runner for like ages. So on the splits, you see there's a pink and blue timer. And right now, why you might be wondering why I have them, because they're both synced up. Wouldn't you expect them to be offset and whatnot? So the pink timer is the important one to look at, because that will be the game time. That is where the timer will stop when we're in a load. And so that's the timer to look at. And that's the timer that is used for runs on the leaderboard as of a couple days after this record. I made a proposal to other runners, like almost no one is active, but at least Avasam, who created this auto splitter and load remover, was able to reply. I made a proposal that runs from now on PC should utilize the auto splitters load remover. So we have a automatic way of removing of having loads remove time rather than me doing it manually, because the way I was doing it before was manually removing every single person's in their runs, every single visible staircase imagery in the spiral staircase loads that you will see coming up. So that's counted as manual load remove time on the leaderboard, which is like 98% of the leaderboard. Then there's the proposal, which was accepted as automatic load remove time. So that's gonna go off of based off of the game time timer. So my pink time by the end of it will be the final time. So that's where you get the 59:47 from, rather than the 59:57, which is from loads manual loads remove time. So either way, it's still a sub 1, which is pretty nice. Shortly after the game came out and we were using real time, we made the decision to do a manual. At the time it was without loads, but then kind of like standardized to loads remove time. We did that in a way to make competition between console and PC fair, because I was one of the few on console that was actually competing for records during the first year of the game's release. So that's kind of how LRT came to be. So that's the difference between the pink and the blue timers on my splits here. Another thing with a layout is obviously the visual cue, or the visual input display. And you can tell there's numbers at the bottom of the mouse. That, if you could already not tell, that is for the amount of scroll inputs I performed during a run. It's just some interesting information, since that's the key or keys that are being mostly inputted throughout this run, and ultimately the game in general when you are playing on PC. So that was a denial record. That was a 1549, which is still a current record, because it's kind of pointless to go for denial IL records if you're not doing a run. At least in this game. So this is one of the first couple of memories of the game. Practically just nothing important happens, just kind of like progressing through the story. But I can really quickly go over the whole purpose of this game. So obviously this is a puzzle platformer, which is pretty enjoyable depending on the gameplay, but this isn't too open world as other games you might be familiar with. The story is very linear. You pretty much have to go from point A to point B, and it's always set that way. So it's limiting us in finding ways to progress beyond glitches and skips. So it's very limiting to find a bunch of time saves, but the stuff that we were able to find have at least equated to a sub 1 run happening at some point, which is nice. So now we are on the second level, which is Anger, and this one is pretty famous for having a skip that was found by Thrill UK, I think in the first couple of days of the game, maybe second week, where we skip most of the level, like practically in an instant. Between the no major skips IL record and the 80% IL record, it's a 17.5-minute difference. And obviously the NMS IL isn't as optimized, so it's practically 17-minute time save, which is nuts. It's pretty straightforward to get there, nothing too important. But the first couple of runs done by Matthew Don't, who goes by someone else now, but I won't mention them just because they probably don't want to be mentioned. They deleted all their runs from the leaderboard, so I assume they don't want to really be mentioned as who they are now. But they completed a run of 1 hour 58 minutes that wasn't put on the leaderboard, and that was before any major discoveries or anything like that were figured out. So no major skips, probably like no smaller skips. And that was before this skip was found, and all the out of bounds stuff on denial. So it quickly dropped within the first couple of weeks, really 2 weeks. So here's how we perform anger skip. It's this whole sequence, getting out of bounds, rolling onto this invisible ledge, and we're out of bounds just like that. It is as easy as it looks to get out of bounds, but you can also mess it up. It's not too hard to mess it up, but when you know where to land on that wall, it's pretty easy. And with that, we're in a state where the bird or predator that attacked us, he normally should be chasing us as we go towards the first windmill, but since we got out of bounds in a unintended sequence, he's not chasing us because we didn't activate him. So we're able to just go to the end of the level and make this final climb and hit a trigger that just so happens to remain there at all times, which is just developer oversight, obviously. Kind of crazy to have one of your levels basically be entirely skipped. So there's the trigger. Looks very odd in the daylight because normally the smoke from the windmill stopping would cloud up the sky, but we're here 17 minutes early, so. And then we activate the final bird chase, and there's a duplicate bird. So the one that's sitting on the burning down nest is pretty much untouched because the cutscene wasn't activated. And we're being chased by him now in a later state. And we're able to skip the bird from originally chasing us off of the bridge because from that final jump after we got locked in the cutscene there, we're past the part of the trigger that actually would trigger the cutscene. So it's kind of funny. We literally get into that final cutscene and out of it in the spot where normally you would enter the trigger to get chased off of the bridge and initiate the level as normal. So since about the first week almost, maybe the start of the second week, this has been the fastest level ever since. Nothing's really changed. Just like movement optimizations, everything's pretty little. It's all been the same since the beginning, really, since this was found. And by the end of this level, this will actually be a new IO record too, so back-to-back IO records. So clearly best ever pace. This was IO record. Denial IO in this run was IO record by 7 seconds or so. This one is by 2 seconds. This is the first sub 530 anger. And then back into another memory, which is basically pointless. these memories were actually voted to not be included in IO runs because they just add nothing, and they're their own thing, even though they're a part of the previous levels. So we used to have them in IOs for the game, but a few runners just felt like they were unnecessary and added just extra time for basically doing nothing. So you only really see these in full runs. Right. So that was the first two levels of the game. The pink timer stops again because it's a load remover. So the load remover does check for a parameter. It's when the Inu is missing. So when player position is missing is when the timer stops when doing automatic loads through the auto splitter. Right. So now we're on the third level. And we start off in a little mini maze where we load up in a different spot in the area we started in just by triggering these rooms. And we're gonna just get out of here in the fastest way possible. There's an automatic set parameter where if we enter 3 of these triggers, will be loaded into this long hallway, so we get there as quick as possible. And then here we take a left instead of a right because the trigger to get into the next area is quicker going through the left rather than right. And then here is the next major skip of the run, other than what we just saw in Denial and Anger. This is what I'm going to be performing is called a tilt glitch, and then I'm going to be performing a tilt clip to get out of bounds. This was found by Jado, I think, in 2020. He was primarily a NMS, a no major skips runner, but he did a lot of glitch hunting. So basically, what I just did in the pool is well, first, I guess I should explain the clip. So obviously, Inu is in a tilted state as per the name of the glitch, tilt glitch, and you're able to manipulate the positioning of the wall with Inu, and you're able to perform an out-of-bounds clip. Now we're out of bounds, skip a bunch of in-between section to get to the next major area, saving around 1 minute and 20 seconds or something like that. But what I can mention really quick about the tilt glitch is tilt glitches are known to be performed by having a climbable ledge next to a body of water. So we get a diagonal angle when jumping into water, and then climb out of the water by climbing up a ledge really quickly, and that just puts Inu's physical state sideways for whatever reason, and we're able to utilize this twice in this run. There's another time save with the tilt glitch at the very beginning of the game that saves 20 seconds to get to out of bounds earlier, but it's probably never going to be RTA viable. So there's only just these two in bargaining. So that was the first one. You'll see the second one, which is probably one of the most important ones in the run. Most important strats in the run later. Up until we get there, it's pretty straightforward, standard, intended checkpoints and whatnot. But yeah, Jado did a bunch of glitch hunting for the game, and that was pretty much the best thing he could find for runs, and it basically broke this strat basically broke this level bargaining in half, because for the longest time, as in probably like the first 2.5 years after release, bargaining had some theories for skips and whatnot, but there was never anything that we could find to perform such skips. So it was like the only level where we couldn't really achieve something that we knew was achievable until we had the strats and whatnot to perform them. The fourth level, Depression, is also in the same boat right now. There are some things that are theoretical, but just not achievable without more things figured out about the game. So, right here, we are in the Sentinel graveyard, and we're gonna wake up the Sentinel that becomes our friend, and we follow around. So I lost a bit of time because during that tilt glitch, normally you're able to stack tilt glitch multiple times, so you can keep tilting Inu's angle a lot to absurd angles. So when I did that first tilt glitch, I did it twice, and then I jumped to see what my state would be in, because if I wanted to perform the tilt glitch to get out of the tilt clip to get out of bounds easier, I would need to be in a falling state with Inu. So when I jumped after the second tilt glitch, I was in a falling state. And normally it's extremely easy to get out of bounds with the tilt clip if you do 3 tilt glitches. So when I was in a falling state, I couldn't jump back in the water, so I had to commit to the tilt clip, and that's kind of why I lost time there compared to if I were to have done a 3rd tilt glitch. Just less of a, not as good as a angle. That was the time loss that came from that. So right here, we free this Sentinel, and then he gives us some flashback and memories and whatnot. Basically, treating us as just taking us on our path through the level. But half of the level, if you've seen the run within the last 2 to 4 years, we skip half the level. So this whole next sequence that'll shortly gonna be happening is the second of 2 tilt glitches in the run. And this one is the one that skips half the level, which was theorized by Giotto and wasn't made possible until me and I don't know if anyone else. There's a few people that helped out, but I made the whole sequence work out so that it becomes RTA viable. So up until then, which is going to be in like a minute from now, it's pretty just straightforward. But there's a small, tiny skip here, because normally we would take that orb and shout at it to destroy the shades here, but instead we can just kind of time a jump right there and bypass those shades on the ledge. Just a little bit of a time save. So, alright, so here is where the sequence for performing the half bargaining skip starts. So we grab this orb, because normally we would grab this orb much later in the level as we're coming back. I throw it towards the shades, because if we're in a tilted state and we grab an orb, we will reset the tilted state. So we don't want that. This is where Tilt Glitch by Giotto was originally found. So right here I get a 2 tilt glitch. And unlike the first one, where we want to be in the fallen state, this one we don't, because we want to be able to move around to get to the, to backtrack a lot quicker. So, right here, this orb is in the perfect spot. I shout at it, I climb on these stalactites on the ground, and climb back up here to bypass the shades. And that's one of two parts of the tilt glitch. So normally those rock formations on the ground I don't think are possible to get up without doing a tilt. So when everything was pieced together that, oh, we can get tilt glitch and backtrack all the way to this section of the level, and then realize, what if we could get to the final puzzle of the level? As that was the big theorized skip since the game came out, because it's mainly because it's got a big opening, but we get there in a different way. So obviously you see me hopping everywhere, so I avoid being in a falling state when doing the tilt glitch. That tilt glitch is very easy to get in a falling state. It's quite a small range that you can get Inu in a state where he can jump and he's not falling, and is good enough to make the upcoming tilt clip happen. So we bypass the Sentinel Graveyard here, and we are going to do a tilt clip, but I did not have the perfect forward tilting angles, so I did another. What I'm doing here is tilt swapping, which over time, if I do it multiple times, which I felt like I wish I did it here, I did it multiple times at at a single time. Doing these back and forth movements with the jump at the end can give you a better forward tilt, and so that's what the run is relying on, because I didn't have the perfect tilt to get it to the tilt clip first try. So right here, we climb under the rock formation, climb up this little hill, and jump onto the other side. And as you can see, it jumps into the checkpoint trigger, where we would have to reload the last checkpoint to spawn back into this part of the level. And we are now back in bounds and have everything set up in the final puzzle of the level. So we skipped the entirety of the story of creating the Sentinel and walking back with the Sentinel, and bypassed quite a huge amount of time. It's 12 minutes or something. I can't remember the exact time. So here's the last major skip of the run. Right here is called climb skip, because of it skips a climbing section on this last puzzle. But right here is the orb throw part. The hardest trick in the game, in my opinion, that requires absolute precision for that orb throw, because the rock formation is in such a way that only in that specific spot we're able to throw that orb to get up on the rock formation. And it's not only that, but we need it to slow down as we climb up the rocks and run to grab it, because once it starts rolling a bit faster and faster, we're not able to, it's not in a state to be grabbed. So getting that practically third try is super good. Only lost, I think, 12 seconds, 13 seconds or something like that. I lost around 30 seconds almost, I think, to the clipping under the rocks. But so right here, normally we would go up here and go forward to go up a climbing section to bring down a skull statue, a movable skull statue, and manipulate the Sentinel into spots so that we could do what we just did, unlock or put the orb in its pedestal and kind of set it up for the for saving all the Sentinels. Right here's another reload last checkpoint strat, because since the leaderboards have primarily been timed for load to remove time, or without loads as it previously was called, we save 4 seconds as soon as we see the checkpoint marker in the top right and do a reload last checkpoint. We lose RTA time, but that's secondary to the timing method we've been using since nearly the start of the game. There'll be another one like that in Depression in the next level coming up. But, yep. Now it's pretty much just run to the end, or jump, in this case. But yeah, a lot of things had to go into making a huge bargaining skip finally happen, especially with the theorized early final puzzle, as that was theorized by Throw UK early on. So finding that really paved the way for making sub 1 happen, because the run went from a little bit under a sub 120 to pretty much in the low 1 hour times. It went from a 117 to a 104 and then a 103 the next day. That was all like around the 10-month. That was all around the 10-month span. So yeah, Jado with that tilt glitch and then all the optimizations we made paved the way to help make a sub 1 a reality. So that's all the major skips. The out of bounds in Denial, which we were able to skip the fox statues and enter the tower section really early. Anger skip. And then the skipping half of bargaining, and then also the climbing skip of the last puzzle, which saves 1 minute 15 seconds, something around that. And now Depression becomes an execution test, especially because of how well this run has been executed. I wouldn't say at this point a minute. Like, I'm pretty positive less than a minute of time has been lost. It's only been big time loss in the things you would expect, like getting back in bounds in Denial, flipping under the rock with the tilt glitch, or just the tilt glitches in general, and bargaining, and the orb throw, which is the hardest strat in the game in my opinion. And then Depression is just a execution test level. Nothing major. There's a major skip theorized, but not doable with the current knowledge to skip the fox statues later on in the level. So I don't believe. No, that was, I think, an IL. That might have also been a bargaining IL record. So this, I'm trying to remember, because a couple of weeks after this, I decided to do bargaining ILs for a sub 15 minute time, which I achieved. Now we're heading to the start of the last level. The last final level, Acceptance, is really just a 3-minute auto scroll, or nothing happens there. So this is practically the last level in the run. And throughout the game's history, I think I did IL runs of this level the most, because it's so execution heavy and has all these intricate little skips all throughout the level. So right here, we're going to be heading to the directions of the Sentinels, because they're helping us throughout this level. And we're going to be performing a cutscene skip by avoiding a trigger that was not discovered for a while. It was like decently late into the release of the game. I think 2 years, maybe even 3. Where another developer oversight, where this trigger, where we would be watching a 18-second cutscene of shades here, the trigger wasn't foot all the way over this small little set of stairs, so we are able to walk up across the very left edge and skip the cutscene. So now we're heading into more auto-scrollery sections. Only the first half of this level is really like auto-scroller. It's not really too bad. So right here, I'm going to be trying to perform... It's not reliable manipulation, but it's somewhat manipulation. So I want to try to get these sentinels down as quick as possible, because we're relying on the sentinels to progress through this part of the level. Right here, this never happens. You could go back in multiple records and multiple runs where I go all the way back to try to perform a little bit of manipulation and come back, and neither two of these sentinels are on the same ground level floor as me. That was very rare. So I automatically lost a good amount of time. Probably like 5 or so... Not even 5 or so seconds, almost 10 seconds, I think. So I think this is where in the run I start complaining about the possibility of not getting sub 1, but as I said before, I had a misconception with that, based on the amount of loads I retimed. So here you could see me utilizing a lot of this strat called roll jumps. So you're able to, right here, really quickly, is one of the dumbest time losses I've done in a while. I did not make this roll jump. And then, if I remember, I didn't make this prop boost, where we're able to jump on this corner and get boosted up the rock to activate this cutscene earlier. So back-to-back unfortunate events. But, so you'll see the roll jump happen a couple more times. So basically, if we roll on a ledge, Inu's physical position will change because of the roll animation. So we're able to stay on the same level as the platform we're rolling off of, and we're able to get a little bit off of the ledge to jump a little later than normal. So that's how some of those roll jumps are doable there. Gets a lot crazier when you're playing on 60 FPS. Some ledges in this game, for some reason, on 60 FPS, you just fly when you do a roll. But as we're playing on 30 FPS, because if you're watching this, I assume you already know that 30 FPS has to be performed on any % runs that want to get top times, because getting the clips in bargaining and denial, getting the out-of-bound clips and getting it back inbound, like inbound for denial and out-of-bounds for bargaining, is not entirely impossible in 60 FPS. It's just almost impossible. Whereas it's a lot easier to get inbounds and out-of-bounds for those clips on 30 FPS, which is why the whole run is done in 30 FPS throughout the history of the game, really. It's different for 100% and no major skips, where eventually 60 FPS and even uncapped are allowed, just because of the amount of time that 60 FPS could help save. Which is not much, by the way. There's another roll jumps to skip some climbing parts and just some more platforming. And now we're in the main section of Depression, which is a circle area, and we have to do these fox statues to get to the last part of the level, which is the chain section. So this whole section throughout the history of the game, also known as pretty much in the first year or two of the game has gone through a couple of reroutes other than having time saves. I think it used to go counterclockwise, clockwise to counterclockwise, and back to a clockwise route, just based on time saves figured out and whatnot. So I am taking a clockwise route, as there's 4 these fox statues spread across this whole ring area. And this second version of the clockwise route is the fastest that we currently know of. It's a pain to see that I lost 20 seconds to that last split just because of... I still have no explanation to what those sentinels were doing. And then the time losses to bad execution. So right here is one of the first few puzzles of this area, is just breaking these locks or seals. Right here is one of the very few time saves that I don't go for in the run. So we can skip this lock or seal by going around it with a well-timed roll jump. And it saves 9 to 10 seconds. It's just incredibly difficult. If you ever want to see it, it's in the current depression IL record, the 13-minute IL of depression. It saves around 10 seconds, but it's incredibly precise and tight, so I just opt not to go for it. It's one of the extremely few times I don't go for an obvious time save in the run on my own accord. It's just not worth it. Even when I was complaining in the live commentary of this that sub 1 was dead, which it actually wasn't, I opted to not go for it and just rather just get a good time and then just come back the next day and get the sub 1 eventually. So yeah, Depression uses a lot of these roll jumps just to like improve on platforming, makes a couple of jumps a little bit easier in some of the cases, making them possible, like earlier in the level. So this one's just a lot of like ledge climbing to get to this part, or get to this statue. Nothing too impressive, just deciding which ledges I can skip over. So coming down from this is very hard to not land on Inu's butt. So just landing on his butt and then jumping off, good enough. Very difficult to get tripping animation there. And then this last puzzle for the final fox statue isn't really a puzzle. It's very straightforward. Nothing interesting. Just unlock this seal to spray water on this kind of like seesaw platform. Then we're able to get the final fox statue to progress through to the final important part of the game, pretty much. So right here, in much earlier times of the game, when we were doing RTA primarily, we would go all the way back to the original spot of the fox, the big fox statue. But since utilizing without loads or load remove time, we figured out that reloading last checkpoint here saves time, loses a little bit RTA, but that, like I said before with the one at the end of bargaining, RTA secondary, so we take the time save we can get. It's not too much. I don't know the exact time that reload last checkpoint saves, but it's not really much at all. So now we are progressing through chains, and I can really quickly mention the misconception with the live commentary and why I thought sub 1 was dead throughout Depression. So right now, at the time of this run, there were 6 times where we had the timer running when a spiral staircase load happens, which obviously we would remove the loads from. When this is this 2025 comeback from last month was the first time I was running the game since 2022, so, and I had a new computer when I did those runs in 2022, and now I have another new computer for when I did my attempts for sub 1 here in 2025. So I was retiming the loads to see what they would add up to on this computer, and I accidentally only implemented 5 of the loads rather than 6. So I thought I was 10 seconds off of sub 1, when in reality I barely just achieved it. Because saves are like adding those loads is like 10 seconds or so. But anyway, I can get onto more of that during the credits. So it's another pretty much just lock puzzle, seal puzzle, where we go up and do climbing, platforming. Right here, we jump off of the platform onto a Inu statue, just so that we don't land on Inu's butt. And here's a skip from having to walk to the outside and more climbing. Get to this this lock. Only a small time save, but that jump is pretty risky. Not too tight, but it's pretty risky. So this is the last, I'd say, important part of the run. So here I'm doing, as you can see on the visual display, specific cardinal directions to kind of skip a climbing section. Very tight, but I found in this 2025 comeback the inputs to make that so much easier. And right here is the unfortunate part where my stream just straight up disconnected for some reason. And as I was loading into the Grief Tower here, I hit local record and I lost just a tiny bit over 10 seconds of gameplay. Good thing is, it's 9 seconds of gameplay where I literally can't do anything, so the people in the Discord were fine with it, as in practically no one responded because this game has been pretty dead for years, unfortunately. So, yeah, sad that we have a record that has lost gameplay, but then again, 9 out of the 10 seconds is basically no interaction, which is fine. I personally think there's no issue with it. So when we loaded back up to this Tower of Grief, I found out a few days later after this run that there's another time save for a reload last checkpoint, adding a 7th one to the run, where we're able to get closer to the pedestal I was just on and save 9 seconds LRT, and on my computer the RTA is practically tied, so I missed out on a 9 seconds time save. Here, this is a much later time save that showed up. So normally we would drop down and you're supposed to climb past these little arches to get to the end of the level, but we can actually just platform onto one of the sides to skip all of that climbing or well-timed jumping. So that's the last trick in the run, and that's pretty much the run. His acceptance is just like a 3-minute nothing auto-scroller. It's just story progression that we literally can't do anything about. So what I thought for a sub 1 loads remove time, at the time, this was before my automatic load remove time proposal, so it was still going by manual load time, so I would be removing the loads for everyone's run based on the same premise of the visual spiral staircase imagery on the load screens. So I thought I needed to achieve around the 1 hour 54 to 55 second time on the RTA timer, so the blue timer on the very bottom right. to achieve a sub 1 hour manual load remove time. But because, as I said, I added up 5 of the 6 loads for this computer at the time during my retime, I didn't account for that other load. So in reality, I needed around a 1 hour, 1 minute, and 4 to 5 second RTA time to achieve a sub 1 LRT with manual timing. And as you can tell by the final time, I did achieve a 10105 on the RTA timer and managed to squeak out the first sub 1 LRT run by less than 3 seconds manually. And then once I made the proposal for automatic load remove time, so utilizing the pink timer and utilizing what that final time says at the end of the run instead, which is around the around the 10-second difference. So yes, it is an automatic time save for anyone on PC. But even if I didn't propose it, this still would be a sub 1 based on the time we've been using, the timing method that we've been using since we introduced it really early on into the game. I think a few months after the game release. So one quick thing to note before this ends is that this run had over 60,000 scroll jump inputs. I think that's nearly 15,000 or so more than the previous 90% record, primarily because when I would climb up ledges, I would always spam the spacebar, but I've realized that's just pretty dumb. I should just be spamming the scroll bar or the scroll key, just so I can make sure I can get as many frame 1 ledge grabs as I possibly can, climb ups as I possibly could. So that's probably why that is the difference between the previous record and this record in scroll time. And as the first input is when time starts, the final input is when time ends, but not entirely on the last input. There, a visual cue is used for when Inu's father throws his red cloak out of the window. I don't know why, but that's Matthew Dunt's timing method when he opted for creating the leaderboard of this game, and we've just been using it ever since. It's just very just that timing for ending the time for ending the run on the last input would just be a bit awkward. So I can understand why he did it at a certain time when Inu's visibly let go of the red cloak. So the time in pink, which is automatic load remove time, says 59:47. If you do the manual LRT method, where we manually remove the spiral staircase imagery from the load screens, this comes out to a 59:57. So less than 3 seconds, squeaking under sub 1. And this is the first ever sub 1 achieved on any percent. A sub 1 RTA is doable. It just requires a crazy run. Like, I definitely know I had lost over a minute of time just from execution and skips and glitches and whatnot. If I were to ever care to go for a sub 1 RTA, which I kind of don't, I would probably utilize removing 2 of the reload lash checkpoints that lose time on RTA in favor of saving time for LRT, but that would only be not even 10 seconds, I believe, combined, which is one from the end of bargaining and the box statues in Depression. So I'm not very interested in getting a sub 1 RTA. Getting a sub 1 LRT is already pretty difficult enough, and you're pretty much banking on most things to go right, because at this point in the state of the run currently, of the 90% run, you're pretty much playing for a first or second try orb throw for climb skip at the end of bargaining. That's pretty much the trick you're playing up to. It's a bunch of things that can go wrong, like resetting multiple times on the Power 2 cutscene skip. The second one at the end of the second tower. In denial, as that's the pretty much the first reset point if you don't go for the harder version of the out of bounds entry in denial. But sub 1 is already kind of difficult. I'm lucky I got such a run this quick into my return. I come back to this game every couple of years and try to find new strats and see what I can pull off, and this was my second stream for sub 1, so I haven't streamed this game since. I'm kind of not too interested in getting a faster time. I was interested in getting a 59 2x, but I just realized I'm not that interested in trying to get a lower sub 1 when sub 1 was just achieved. So I opted to stop playing and return to my main speed game at the moment. So yeah. Neat. Sub 1 has finally happened and took a year and a half. Wasn't really speculated until after the half bargaining skip was fully put together, where we were able to achieve sub 105s. That sub 1 wasn't really thought of being a possibility. So I can mention plans because I will come back to this game again. It's just probably not going to be for 90% anymore unless there's more time saves to make a 58 more doable, because currently saving nearly 50 seconds is on top of the run I just had, which, mind you, is denial IO record, anger IO record, previous bargaining IO record, I think. It's just really hard to put a run together like that. I just kind of got lucky this in like my second stream attempt of doing it. So when I return to this again in another 3 years or so, I have no clue. I want to achieve a 139 and no major skips, because currently it's a mid 142, and that was during my 2022 comeback where I played all 3 main categories of the game. And I only did practically 2 runs, but the first run didn't complete because of a skip I theorized and put into use, and it broke the game. So I only had 1 completed no major skips run during that time period, which resulted in the current record of mid 142, and I notably had lost well over 2.5 minutes, so 139 is definitely doable in LRT. And then as for 100%, I'm not too interested unless a sub 2 hour time is super doable, which is, I have no clue if it is without a couple more major things happening. I could get a 203 if I feel like it, but that's the most I can do, I think. So those are my plans for the next time I come back to this game. So I hope you enjoyed this post commentary of the first ever sub 1 time of RiME 90%. Thank you for watching and listening.